All right, we are live. Back again Friday night. What is it, February 4th? Here to talk just an awesome slate of games for Saturday, February 5th on DraftKings, and some betting angles too. We got the usual character. Gavin is here. Gavin, what's going on, man?
What's going on? We got a big slate, and I think one of the better ones that we've come across in terms of not only quality but quantity across the board so far this year.
Yeah, agreed. And back for, I think, the third or fourth time, John Fendler's back. How's the season been?
It's been all right. I've only made this will be my third ever podcast appearance, and they all happen to be with you, Steve. So, and you, Gavin, too.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, Yeah. But we'll have some fun here. Friday night. It's been a long week, so I kind of wanted to start asking both of you. Start with you, John. Since we haven't talked in over a month now, just kind of your favorite storyline going on, or something to look forward to between now and the tournament here.
I think we as college basketball fans complain every year about the quote-unquote soft bubble and say it's the worst it's ever been, and there's always this recency bias. But what makes it really interesting this year is how many teams you have just looking at the top 60 in the net, teams from non-power leagues who are in contention for at-large bids and who are in really good shape. Murray State, 27th in the net, Wyoming, 31st, Loyola, 32nd, San Fran, 33rd. These are pretty lofty net rankings. Belmont, 38th, but the
Oh, no, did we lose John? Nope, you're there. You're good.
My back? All right.
Yep.
Every night is a landmine for these teams. They deserve to be in the tournament, but you always run the risk of going to Southeast Missouri State and dropping one that kills your resume.
Yeah, that is interesting. Gavin always tries to get me further and further into the mid majors and the lower majors. I try not to spread myself too thin, but I know that you're deep into that stuff, and Gavin is as well. What do you think, Gavin, for a storyline now going into March?
I think like one of the craziest storylines, and I think some of it comes into focus with the Duke North Carolina game coming up, but is that some of the blue bloods are finally back. Thank God that for the sake of college basketball, I'll go the opposite end of the spectrum and be duct tape shoot guy from Fendler's take, but at least we got Duke and Kentucky firing on better cylinders. Like North Carolina at home has been an absolute wagon of a team, both straight up and against the spread. So I think it's just better off for college, but we also have the emergence of some of these other teams that you might even think of as like a football school, like Auburn, who are starting to make the fold, and Bruce Pearl getting his big check. So I just think college basketball is firing at a pretty good rate right now, and it's at a good point, kind of heading into the home stretch here.
Yeah, I'll kind of piggyback on that. I was going to talk about kind of the teams outside the top 10. I feel like there's a lot of teams between 11 and 30ish at KenPom that have a better shot than in a couple of years past to kind of make a Final Four. I know I'm a big fan of this Xavier teams like that, in the 15 to 25 range. Xavier, Illinois, UConn, even maybe Ohio State, teams like that, I think have a little better shot than in the last couple of years where we've just had, two clear best teams. What do you think about that, John, before we dive into the slate?
It's certainly good for engagement of the quote-unquote casual to have these blue bloods back, and the sport is better overall when these teams are really good because it creates this excitement when they then lose. So I for that kind of selfish entertainment reason, I'm also happy to see these teams back.
Yeah, same. All right, well, we have a bunch of games here, so let's dive right in. First one on the slate is a great one. Illinois at Indiana. KenPom's got it. Indiana 68-66, I believe. 205th and 170th tempos. Gavin, why don't you start us off on this one here?
That's literally where it was lined at, right where I looked at. Illinois 68-67. Illinois off 3 straight wins. Actually, interesting. Shot quality has them winning every single game since December 11th against Arizona. That's 11 in a row. And Illinois got Purdue on Tuesday. So there's little bit of a sandwich spot. Caveat that in 2022, this year of our good Lord, they've played 4 total road games. That's against Minnesota, Nebraska, Maryland, and Northwestern. This is not only a different step up in competition, but especially against Indiana, a team that's been heavily slated and better performing at home. So, certainly I want to lean kind of towards Indiana on the betting side. We'll see if I eventually get there, but I'm still on the side of, Illinois full strength with Curbelo fully firing and not being, completely off the reservation. I still believe is a top 5 to 10 team in the country, but you're also dealing with one of the most disparaging, home road splits slated towards the home side in Indiana in the country.
Yeah. What do you think on this one, John?
Clearly, it's just a situational spot that favors Indiana, but I do not like the matchup scheme-wise for them. The whole question, Indiana has to play through the post. The guards are not good enough to win games on their own. And if you're trying to just blow through Kofi to the rim, and as good as TJD is and has much of a matchup problem as Race Thompson can be, I don't know if that's the best path to try and just overpower them in the paint. The teams that seem to have the most success against Illinois, relatively speaking, are the ones who could spread the floor, get Kofi moving around. That's not Indiana. Their spacing is 243rd per shot quality. He's going to kind of be able to camp out in the paint and just bang with the Indiana bigs. But because of the situational spot, this is an easy pass for me. Great game, though.
Yeah, awesome game. Illinois doesn't really let teams shoot threes. They're under 30% in opponents' 3-point attempts per field goal attempt, which is 6th in the nation. So they're running teams off the 3-point line right into Kofi, and they've actually been best in the Big Ten so far inside the arc, according to KenPom. So I agree. Indiana's kind of running into exactly what Illinois wants them to do here. I think kind of a lower scoring game, maybe because of that. Gavin, do you like anything here in DFS? Kofi's been a pretty tough fade here over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, there's this one guy, Kofi Cockburn. He's not bad at basketball, and it's really hard not to play him in this situation. You look at, because I was thinking of, can you go to TJD and potentially be contrarian, but obviously small sample size. But you look at Trace Jackson Davison's last year against Illinois, 9 of 31 from the field. It's not the most not the most favorable statistics, obviously, and he's been a little bit of a different animal and more of an alpha this year than he was last year, but still kind of similar matchup against Kofi on the defensive end. Still going to be tough. First kind of ugly gut call of the day. Here we go, right out of the gate.
5 minutes.
Man, old Trey Galloway. Okay, you want to talk about budget Tyler Kolek. This is what Trey Galloway can at least bring to this team, especially with Rob Finney out. At least someone who's not just going to sit in the corner like a Parker Stewart and pray for the ball, at some point. Yeah. At least can be interesting and a playmaking aspect at a sub 5K price, if I'm pretty sure. So I got a little bit of interest in Trey Galloway in larger field stuff.
Yeah, he's at 4-3. The Indiana guard merry-go-round on a 12-game slate.
Dude, budget Tyler Kolek. Is there a better comp for Trey Galloway than budget Tyler Kolek? I don't know. I don't think so.
That's pretty good. Early projections have TJD is pretty popular, which would surprise me once it all comes down to it in this matchup. Not much stands out to me. Besides this, I'm going to wait and see on Curbelo's minutes. I'm not going to play him on a 12-game slate until I see him playing 25 plus. And we haven't seen that since before Christmas, it feels like.
When he turned it over 19 times against Marquette or whatever it was.
Yeah, so I think this is a Kofi or pass game for me. Moving on to the next game here, we have OU at Oklahoma State. Gavin will have a lot of interest here. KenPom's got it, Oak State 66-64, so another low total here. 265 and 109 tempos. What do you got on this game, Gavin?
KenPom lined it 66-64 in the current total. I think it's actually the line has moved towards Oklahoma slightly, but you're going to have a grease fire of a game. Oklahoma State, look, is a good home court advantage. It's not one of the best in the Big 12, given there's a couple of anomaly home courts, but it will be full effort against Oklahoma. And OU's off 2 straight losses, bad losses, a road smacking at Auburn, and then, the home loss versus TCU. They've been pretty bad when trailing. Kind of anecdotally, I feel like I've bet Oklahoma to try and close gaps when they've gotten down early, and they haven't been able to do so, partly due to turning the ball over frequently, very lack of three-point efficiency. But, yeah, this should be a pretty good one. I think going to be a super grimy one that we don't look really much towards for the DFS side, but sue me. I spent a couple of years in Stillwater. I'm going to be watching the game.
Yeah, what do you think about this game, John? This should be a tight one. OU kind of reeling here after a hot start to the season. Both teams like to turn it over. What do you think?
It won't be a problem tomorrow. There is going to come a point potentially where you have to wonder with OSU, with the tournament ban and being at the bottom of the league. There's going to be games, I think, down the stretch where maybe they don't fully bring it. Clearly not going to be an issue tomorrow with the rivalry. But there's issues for both teams offensively. Oklahoma always is going to protect the rim. Any Porter Moser defense is going to force you to take jumpers. And I don't think there's a worse jump shooting team in the Power 5 than Oklahoma State. I mean, it's close. They actually take decent shots. Last I checked a couple weeks ago, there was a 200 spot differential between their shot selection and their shot making.
Wow.
They're taking good shots. They just can't hit shit. But their pressure against the Oklahoma backcourt that we know is really shaky. Yeah, this game is ugly as can be. If you offer me maybe 3.5 with Oklahoma, I'd be interested, but that's probably about it.
Yeah, 130 total early in the slate. For DFS, Gavin, I think the only thing I would be looking at, I played him the other night. If Bryce Williams is out again, I kind of like this Rondell Walker kid. He's played well the last couple games. Don't think that he'll be, like a jam into your lineup guy, but he's under 5K here. The rates are pretty good with Williams out. I think Williams might be back here though.
I've seen hopeful to return.
Yeah, but he played. He's played 34, 28, and 34 minutes without him, taking 18% shot rate. So him and Avery Anderson, I think, would be in play, but only if Williams is out. Do you have anything to add to that before we move on?
First time in 4 games that they'll have all 3 of their guards in Williams, Anderson, and Thompson. So, maybe there's a tiny bit of value on Oklahoma State, given that they've lost a couple 4 straight during that same stretch. But at the same time, they've been a lot more competitive in OU in their losses. 3 of the 4 were on the road, and then they lost at home in OT versus Iowa State. So I tend to like kind of the scrappiness of this Oklahoma State, but there is definitely an aspect where, potentially the bottom falls out here if they're not really competitive late. And this might be a fade spot, especially on Oklahoma State for the next game or 2 after this one.
I know my uncle there's got to get it turned around.
Mike Boynton. Yep.
All right, we will move on to an ACC tilt. Wake at Florida State. KenPom's got a Wake 73-72. We were talking about this game before we went live. Wake 53rd tempo, really pacing it up with Alondas running the show. Florida State 194 on the season. Both Osborne and Polite are out. Osborne's out for the year. Polite, Gavin, is he out for the year or just for this game? I didn't see that, but
just at least going forward. I didn't hear anything about for season for Polite, but definitely out for this one randomly.
So 2 or 3 of their starting 5 are out. So maybe he'll play 11 guys instead of 12 here. What do you think overall about the game, Gavin?
Yeah, Leonard is – well, you have who is it? Ngom, too, who's out with some sort of wrist or hand injury for, extended period of time. So maybe finally Leonard narrows it down. But so I've seen an open of Pick'em, and then it got all the way up to Florida State -3, and then Polite was ruled out, and it's come back to Florida -1.5, but still 146.5 total. So, pretty important in terms of the DFS sense. Florida State, 3 straight losses plus mega revenge, getting thumped at Wake, by 22, I think, earlier this year, where, look, they shot 29% from the field and 16% from 3, like 4 of 25 from 3. But that being said, you got Davion Williamson back for Wake, who in his return, he's had 10 plus points in his last 6 and 6 of his last 7 since the actual injury, which I think helps in terms of the Alondas and JLR burden in terms of potentially those guys being a little bit more efficient. But the big issue with me comes with when you look at Hoop Explorer and you look at some of the Malik Osborne on-off differences, the defensive side is really what scares me, because I think he limits some of that 1 through 5 switchability that Florida State does, try to possess. With Malik Osborne on the floor, 0.98 point per possession, and they're plus 10.2 points in transition per 100 possessions with him on the floor. Yeah. Without him, they're 1.07 points per possession and net minus 12.7 per 100 possessions in transition. So we've clearly seen some of these young bigs on Florida State not been able to handle some of it, and Wake is going to try it in terms of pushing the pace with the 18th highest catch and shoot 3-point frequency versus a Florida State defense that's like 350th in catch and shoot 3-point points per possession. So I couldn't help myself, and I might be with the Barney at the bar duct tape shoe betters, but I took Wake Forest +3 when it peaked up to that kind of right before the Polite news.
Yeah. John, what do you think about this game? And I have a specific question for you. With these 2 guys out, and the third guy out is McLeod is out too. We know that Butler.
Sorry, there you go.
Yeah. So besides Ngam, who else do they have to play inside? Butler's 7 feet, but he's kind of stand in the corner, shoot threes guy.
I think this is a game they actually might be able to get away with not having a true 5, just because Wake, like Dallas Walton, is a good post defender, but not a guy you're going to throw the ball to for a ton of offense. Like, other guys have to create for him. So not having one of their monster 7'4" guys here, I don't think is a particularly big issue. I completely agree with Gavin that the Osborne thing is massive, and it's shown up in the last couple of games with him out. I love Malik Osborne, and I think people are kind of sick of Florida State at this point. But when it was I played at -1.5. It wouldn't have gone any higher than 2. But that line says, okay, Wake is 2 to 2.5 better on a neutral. I'm not quite there yet, especially with Wake's troubles on the road. Hazelmetrics has a really unique proprietary metric called this away from home metric, whatever you want to call it. Wake is the 7th worst road team in the country, and that's relative to your overall performance.
Wow.
Your team-specific performance. They're 351st away from home, and they've laid some turds. So you're getting an FSU best effort spot here. There's clearly warts. The lack of switchability that Gavin mentioned is clearly a problem. Wake runs really good offense, but this is the lowest of buy lows, and I couldn't pass on that.
Yeah, and they're historically really, really good at home. Especially in league play. When Tech beat them last week, they flashed a stat on the screen. They were like 68-3 at home in the last couple seasons, something insane like that. I also bet Florida State -1.5 just kind of because of that. And the Osborne injury is big for me, but I'm not a big Polite guy, and I think that just gives more minutes to guys like Mills and Evans, who I think are kind of better than him anyways. And we'll dovetail that into the DFS, Gavin. I'll give you the easy side. Who do you like on Wake Forest?
I'm not quite done defending my position, frankly.
All right, hit that first.
When you look at Hoop Explorer, 3-point defense goes from 33% with Osborne to 43% without him versus a Wake team that's top 50 in 3-point rate. I mean, I completely understand, but actually, I want to entertain you gentlemen with a couple or a different angle. And what about looking at the over here? When I talked about kind of the Osborne on-off splits, like this is obviously a Leonard Hamilton revenge spot. I don't really have the numbers to back up my gut much more than that, but Florida State 8-4 to the over at home. Wake 14-9 to the over, on the season, 5-2 to the over on the road. And the thing about Wake is their offense carries on the road. It's their defense that really collapses on the road, where they're 332nd in 3-point defense on the road. So maybe Florida State can sneak out some points. So I think we're going to have to look at Florida State from a DFS side, especially without Polite. So it's like where do you go? Cleveland hasn't really been shooting that great from three. And, Raekwon Evans is kind of a floor guy who's not really going to bust it. I don't really know where I'm going to go with Florida State, but you're going to need guys from this team just with the cost savings plus minute floor that you're going to get from a lot of them.
Well, real quick, do you have any interest in Alondas at 9-8 or LaRavia at 8-7 on the road here?
Not really. Frankly, just with Williamson coming back and some of that usage starting to get spread out, it was easier when you had Monsanto and Williamson out for Alondas, but now it's starting to get to a precarious spot where I'm not as interested in them at their price points.
That's a great point. It's not the same scenario we had 3 weeks ago when it was just a two-man show. But yeah, on the Florida State side, you're opening up just a ton of usage here. I really like Caleb Mills tomorrow. His price is actually down from when those two guys were in. Obviously don't love jamming Florida State guys on a big slate because Leonard could just always fuck you. But I think Mills is pretty safe to play a ton of minutes here, given the circumstances. I think Evans is a good floor play, like you said. And then the freshman Worley, I don't know a ton about him. I'm not sure if you do, John, but he played a couple games ago and played decently. He's really cheap here. Do you know anything about him?
I've been impressed with him. The metrics back this up. He's been a pretty good defensive player. I was just looking on Bart Torvik where you can sort by defensive. It's essentially like a catch-all defensive stat, and he's second to Raekwon Evans.
Yeah.
So he's got a pretty high steal rate. So it seems like, well, this is typical for a Leonard Hamilton recruit. Like he's going to be pretty raw offensively to start, but he's going to be a ridiculous athlete with multi-position defensive chops. Yeah,
because when Evans was out 2 games ago, he played 33 minutes. And he's real cheap here. I'm not sure if he's going to start just because Evans is back and they might just run Evans, Mills, Cleveland, Butler, and Gom maybe to start. But Gavin, I'll throw it over to you before we wrap up this game. Butler played 30 minutes last game. He is a big lanky bastard that's just kind of a corner stander, but he's cheap. He's 4K. And then Tanner and Gom, 3.2K. I don't know how much he's going to be able to play, or I haven't looked at his foul rate yet. I'm sure it's high, and Alonda's going to be driving on him all game. So what do you think about the forwards? We're going to need some value on the slate, and these guys all project really well.
Yeah, typically I'm a little more of just a John Butler guy generally. I at least like what he presents as an actual 7-foot legitimate 3-point threat with block upside and an interior post presence. So I'll take him on the fact that I've seen it just a little bit more from, Ngom. But at the same point, I mean, you're going to have to mix them both in. You're going to have to mix a lot of FSU guys in if you're 150 and on this slate. Like it's going to be hard to get a sense outside of Caleb Mills who's going to completely blow out value, but you're gonna have to dig in the mud and figure this out. That very well could be like where the slate is decided.
Yeah, we spent a bunch of time on this game because I think it's an important one. Any last words here, John, before we move on?
I think we've uncovered every nook and cranny of this game.
All right, to a better real life game but worse fantasy game, UConn at Villanova. Ken Palm's got it Nova 68-60. Tempos 255, 356. It sounded like Justin Moore kind of tweaked his ankle in that last game. He's questionable here. I don't have any reason to think that he would miss. Gavin, why don't you give us a brief overview here since we took so long on the last game?
Yeah, I apologize, but 129.5 total. Villanova laying 6, which is 2 points than kind of what Ken Palm lined it at in terms of 68-60. We got UConn off that sleepy loss versus Creighton. Like they kind of had played the bottom of the Big East for 5 straight, and I think they just got caught napping with a hot Ryan Hawkins 3-point game. But Justin Moore with the rolled ankle makes it questionable, especially when, it's an interesting matchup of strengths. We know Dan Hurley's going to run you off the 3-point line. UConn, 24th lowest defensive 3-point rate versus Nova at home with the 25th highest 3-point rate and the 27th highest percentage in terms of points coming from the 3-point line. So, in that sense, that's kind of enough to get me off of any sort of side, because I think it's whatever side, implements the strength comes away with it. But I have no way to handicap kind of which way it does. But, that being said, going to be kind of a greasy, grimy DFS game, not one that we're going to have a ton of interest in.
Yeah, John, what do you think overall about the game? And do you have any bets here? I did take UConn plus 6.5 earlier today.
Both teams off of pretty bad losses. I mean, there's no shame for Nova in losing at Marquette with how hot they've been in a road game. They started, it was a 10 p.m. Eastern tip.
Yeah.
Nothing easy about that, but they got, it feels like they kind of got knocked out from the jump and never really recovered. And then UConn, just as Gavin said, just a complete clunker. If we woke up in the second half, but a little bit too little too late. Yeah, I'm going to have nothing here from a side perspective. I'm curious to see how Hurley guards Nova because, right, as you guys said, he's going to run them off the line. But then the question with Nova is the ball starts swinging around. You have to stay home on the shooters. Like their individual playmakers are not that good. They're just not. Like these guys are not going to bust the game open by driving to the rim and throwing it down. You have to stay home on those guys on the perimeter. And I think UConn can do that. But
especially with how well Nova plays off 2 feet, every single one of those guys with the Jay Wright system.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. If the total is a little higher, I'd be interested in the under, but the side, no chance.
Yeah. You mentioned that Marquette loss. Nova hasn't lost to anyone besides Marquette since before Christmas.
Marquette's
lost to Marquette twice.
Their ass. I mean, God love them.
Yeah. Moving over to DFS, we got Sonogo priced up a little high for me for this in-game environment. And then Gavin, it's, the tale of 2 underpriced guys where we missed the game. You got your boy Isaiah Whaley coming off just a hot shooting game where we didn't play him after we talked about him all day. So probably won't be on him here. And then Brandon Slater, who had the game of his career the other night, probably won't chase that. Anything for you DFS wise before we move on?
Not really. It's going to be a tough interior matchup for guys like Jermaine Samuels and Eric Dixon, who are going to be completely undersized against, the likes of Sonogo and Whaley, who are, Whaley's obviously a much more defensible, switchable guy. But it's kind of funny just how as soon as Sonogo touches it, the ball is going up within 2 dribbles. Almost feel like he can kind of half shoot you out of a game in a sense, but
he is not afraid to pull it.
Yeah, but maybe there's a little bit of value on Nova. I mean, I don't know. I can't say that I'm, gunning to get anybody in this game. Brian Antoine is playing. If Moore is out, maybe that's where you go grease it. But other than that, this is not something that I'm trying to target.
One other interesting thing with Nova, and this has been a thing all year, one of the Haslametrics stats is consistency, just your efficiency from game to game. Nova, 3rd most inconsistent team in the country behind Longwood and Missouri. And
wow, that's surprising.
Tied with Iowa and Rutgers. I mean, part of it's just the variance of how many threes they shoot, but yeah, they're an unpredictable team.
It sounds like my Hokies. Shooting threes, making a lot of them, not guarding well enough. All right, we'll move on to a team that got a much-needed win. Was that last night? St. John's at Butler. Ken Palm's got it. St. John's 69-68. St. John's likes to run, as we know, 4th in tempo. Butler 333. Champ finally got back on track last night. Man, he had been struggling. Coach was saying that he just hadn't been confident. So good to see him get back to what we thought he was last night in what was pretty much a perfect soft landing spot against Georgetown. But now going to Butler, I think personally, St. John's struggles here. I bet Butler money line. Gavin, what do you think about this game overall?
Yeah, another really interesting game in that St. John's, like you just talk about tempos and pacing. St. John's 2 games all year south of 70 possessions at Nova and a Colgate blowout. Butler has literally not played a game above 70 possessions all year. I tend to lean on the side of the home team typically controlling pace, and it's way easier to slow a team down than it is to speed a team up. But yeah, I'm typically a fan of Butler as a home dog pretty much in any spot. You got St. John's off the rebound win at Georgetown like we talked about, but had lost to Nova and the luckiest team in the nation in Providence. And St. John's has Nova on deck. So you might even have some look-ahead concern here. So probably lean towards your way with Butler, but haven't gotten it to myself yet.
John, what do you think? You gonna back me up here?
Butler pretty good against the press. I was looking at Synergy, 68th percentile against the press. They see a decent amount of it, and that makes sense. It's an older with Hodges and Thompson handling the ball, so you would expect them to be pretty good there. I'm concerned if they could score at the rim against all that St. John's length. I mean, Golden, not exactly known for his leaping ability, but this is a tough game for me. I really don't even have a lean. Nothing.
What do you think about Hodges specifically in this matchup? Because he came back, had a couple good games, and then he struggled the last 2. It is a pace up, but I do worry a bit because St. John's is so good defending around the rim.
Without him, I would certainly lean St. John's, but to me, he's the X factor for Butler here because this is a game where he could really take control of it. I mean, he's a pretty athletic dude. St. John's athletic on the wing, of course, but I have no idea what the pricing would be. That's for you guys, but I could see this being a game where you're like, oh shit, Bo Hodges, yeah, he's still pretty good.
So his price is basically hasn't gone up since the 2 real good games. So he's going to project well, Gavin. I know you were off him for the last 2 games. Are you back on Bo here? At 6'2".
All right.
Same price.
Last slate, I did take a nice poo on you for not wanting to. I didn't want to play Bo last slate, but this, if you are not going to play Bo Hodges at 6.2K at home against St. John's when he's 3 of 15 his last 2 games from the field, I don't know when you play him. So probably pouring my build after literally dumping all over him last slate and saying he was a horrible play. But this
Who did you have over him?
St. John's.
Braylon Bridges over Bo Hodges. And I think he won that.
Hey, Braylon Bridges outscored Bo Hodges. So call me crazy.
God, I hate that team. All right. So yeah, I'm in on Bo here. Gavin, do you like any of the other pieces in this game? I'm probably off of St. John's here just because of the pace down and their prices are up. Chuck Harris is at 5'8", Aaron Thompson right around 6. You got Enzi at 6. Anything else here?
I wish Enzi was priced a little bit lower. I think he's somewhat interesting given I just don't think that Bryce Golden has to be one of the most cement shoed big men in the entire Power 5, bar none. So I think Enzi just plays a little bit better in this matchup. I wish it was a little bit cheaper than 6K. And kind of similar with my boy Simas Lukosius, man. I mean,
you love that guy.
This guy is fearless, but now he's 5K. So you're talking about basically needing a floor of 18 to 20 fantasy points, which starts to get a little bit more dicey. So not really sure I get there.
Yeah, it's a bit hairy. For me, it's probably Bo or pass. On St. John's, Soriano's coming off just an awesome game. I think that was last night. So he might be popular here, but his price is up and just not getting a ton of minutes. I think he's probably capped, in that low 20s. Anything else on this one, John, before we move on?
No, this St. John's games tend to have a lot of wild in-game swings. They're such a streaky team. They could rip off a 12-0 run. They'll give up a 14-0 run. That's a strange matchup with Butler, who's so stable game to game. But St. John's can speed up anyone. And I agree with Gavin that at home, at Hinkle, Butler has a better chance of controlling the tempo, but you have no choice against St. John's. They play like headless chickens at all times. There's no way to avoid getting caught up in that. They sped up Providence, who's a snail, and Providence was flying up and down the court.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. So Bo can rack up those fantasy points
and
here.
Posh's knee is only getting healthier, by the game. So that probably only, encourages them to continue going.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will move on to the next game, which I'm not sure why they put it on the DraftKings slate, but we got to talk about it because Auburn's got an 86 team total. Auburn at Georgia. Auburn 86-67 on KenPom. Both teams in the top 80 tempo wise. We'll start with you this time, John. Any notes here? The one that I had, right? So when does Auburn trip up? So these are their next 8 games: at Georgia, at Arkansas, Texas A&M at home to Vandy, at Florida, Ole Miss, at Tennessee, at Mississippi State, South Carolina. So they kind of avoid the big dogs for the rest of the slate here.
On the road. Yep. I had the same note. Yeah.
I would expect one loss either at Arkansas, at Tennessee, or at Mississippi State.
Yeah, I like Mississippi State. What do you think of this game?
It's definitely, I think, the obvious. It's pretty clear to everyone this is a sandwich game between the blowing out Bama at home and then with a pretty big trip to Arkansas coming up on Tuesday. But it's already, I think the line opened at the softer books at like 19. It's down to 16 and a half. There's nothing for me here. I mean, even if Auburn gives you like a C+ effort, you're probably talking about it being right around the number. So in Georgia, even by their standards, got embarrassed earlier this week at home, lost by 26. So I think they will show up. But at some point, Auburn's going to put a big blitz on them, and then you're just flipping a coin.
Yeah, agreed. Gavin, I'll let you talk about your boy Braylon Bridges here. The floor is yours.
I mean, the man is 6'11". He is the only hope on this earth to slow down the guard-eligible Walker Kessler. Now, let me explain to you, John. So they added the center position. It used to be only guards and forwards. They literally added a center position for no reason, and then they give Walker Kessler guard eligibility. You can play Walker Kessler as a guard in your lineup. So that's absurd. But
yeah, you can play him at the same position as Marquise Noel.
Yeah, because they're, within an inch or two in height of each other. But this, I mean, we know what we got in this game. My thing was, what it came down to was, what is Auburn looking like in these down road SEC games? 55 points at Mizzou, 80 against Ole Miss, against the Amoeba defense, and Auburn, I think, is top 40 in assist rate. That's fine. I get that. 81 at South Carolina. They put up some good numbers. I took a small stab on under 154.5, partly because of the sandwich spot. I think that it's much more likely that Auburn's defense, just given length, and even if there's a lack of effort, versus where it might manifest on the offensive side a little bit more fully. I think on the defensive side, when you just got those kinds of athletes versus Georgia, and I've watched Georgia the last 2 or 3 games, I've tried to bet on them. I bet them first half against Arkansas and lost on a buzzer beater 3, which I had to eat top ramen for 2 nights, but we won't talk about that. So I took the under 54.5 on a stab on kind of a sleepy spot where Auburn doesn't lay 90 on them, and but it still put up a good defensive effort.
Becoming interested as you were talking. I agree with that angle. Oddly enough, Akendo didn't play in the first meeting, and it hung around the closing number, I think, for like the last, whatever it was, 5-6 minutes. It was right on that 22-23 range. And that the Mizzou loss is the one that everyone kind of cites for Auburn, is like, okay, they could have a really bad game, but that was right after they beat Kentucky at home and their game of the year. So I kind of can overlook that one. But yeah, Gavin, I'm probably going to join you on that under.
Yeah, the only thing I was telling Gavin is, man, it would scare the shit out of me that Auburn can score 90 by themselves here.
And here's the thing is, like, you never see Georgia play under 70 possessions. Okay, so rather than Tom Crean taking the Buzz Williams mold, let's grind them down on defense. Let's play them slow tempo on offense and just try to win possession by possession. Tom Crean's like, we're Georgia. We're playing Arkansas. Fuck it. Let's run. Let's just outscore them. Like, no, Tom Crean, this is why you are at Georgia about to lose your job, because you are just incompetent at actually looking at how your team might succeed. Maybe they grind it down and Aaron Cook can pick and roll them, to the point where it's at least competitive. But with the way that Auburn just plays game to game and the YOLO mindset, there's just no way I could even take Auburn anyway. So take the under and probably put a brown paper bag over my head while I watch.
It's going to be, that's a game you definitely don't watch. It's going to be so ridiculously fast, but you just hope it's so inefficient. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving to the DFS side, Gavin, I assume you're not on anyone from Georgia here. Cook will project decently just because of his price and his rates. I think he's kind of been exposed in league play a bit after the hot start to the season. Walker Kessler, guard Walker Kessler, 9,400, coming off just an absolute burner game. What do you have? 8 blocks and 4 steals. Those are worth a lot of points, John, in DFS. He's going to play, well, depending on the spread. I think there's some risk here for such a high price with him and Jabari. What do you think about Auburn here, Gavin, for DFS?
Yeah, whenever you can put a guy that has 10 block upside in the guard position, it's certainly a unique spot. And frankly, if I would pay $500-600 more for Walker Kessler to have guard eligibility rather than forward only or center, just because what that can present you. Usually the guards, you got to get them scoring. And there's a few kind of guards that have crazy peripherals in terms of rebound rate, assist rate, steal rate, whatever it may be. But there's I do got some gross interest in Walker Kessler, even because if Auburn doesn't score 90, he still has a chance to 50 bomb on everybody. So
yeah,
I get a little.
Georgia's awful defensively inside too.
Yeah, I mean, and Jabari Smith, they finally priced him over 8K. I think has a lot lower floor in this scenario, especially just with the way that usage and shots get flattened out on this team in any given night for whoever's kind of firing and hot-handed. Wendell Green, Katie Johnson can take a high volume of shots, and Leaky Black,
budget Leaky Black, Alan Flanagan.
Yeah, Leaky Black, also known as Alan Flanagan. I'm so fucking done with Flanagan, but yeah, moving on.
Yeah, John, that's our inside joke. We tried to play Flanagan when he came back, and he's just kind of out there now. Injury sapped, maybe a little more than we thought from him. And they're keeping his minutes in check, maybe saving him a bit. But yeah, I think they'll probably lengthen the rotation a bit. I think Cambridge probably gets a little more run here, guys like that. So, all right, we've spent too much time on this game. Let's move on to another game that's it's not similar, but it's got a shitty team on it. Tennessee at South Carolina. Ken Palm's got it Tennessee 70-62. Pace up spot for Tennessee. South Carolina's 55th in tempo with a pretty good defense, though. I think they're top 40 on Ken Palm in defensive efficiency. We'll go back to you, John, on this one. What do you think overall about the game and the spot for Tennessee here?
This defensive scheme, and I had it written down, or it was in my drafts. I believe this Tennessee scheme has shut down South Carolina. I mean, like absurdly low numbers every year, and they did it earlier this year in Knoxville. South Carolina scored 46 points on 70 possessions. Is South Carolina trying to generate offense against this particular scheme is as hopeless as it gets. But Tennessee has laid enough clunkers on the road the last couple of years. Well, actually, in at home, but just as they're not a good team as a big favorite. So, and South Carolina's going to probably show up here at 8. It's a pass from me. I could see South Carolina sticking around the whole way, but I could also see them barely struggling to break 50 again.
I have an interesting question for both of you here. Do you like this Tennessee team better than last year's?
I do.
I do too. Gavin? Because I know you hated that team last year.
Oh, dude, I'll tell you what, I'm not super fond of this team until Kennedy Chandler decides that he wants to actually be a Ja Morant comp, because his decision making at the point guard position has been troubling, irrespective of his obvious, athleticism and scoring prowess at times. But I don't know. I'm not as high on this Tennessee team. Like, we've seen their offense go completely anemic at times, and in games against defenses that they have no business, going blind against. So I don't know. I'm just not big on the Tennessee team in general.
Yeah, I'm not either. I thought that was an interesting question because they're kind of ranked in the same ish spot, but the team makeup is a bit different. Um, any other game notes here, Gavin, before we dive into the DFS?
Yeah, the over around 135. South Carolina has only played 13 games in a row over that total.
Yeah, but what John just said just scares the shit out of me.
That's pretty interesting. But I don't know.
Say, John?
Like I said, we've seen this Tennessee offense just go completely, deaf for a while. So it's not really something that I'm looking to jump on. But when I was noticing 13 in a row, holy shit.
Yeah, that's interesting. On the DFS side, Tennessee does have a 70-team total here. I'm not playing anyone on South Carolina. Frank Martin is Leonard Hamilton light with his rotations and hockey shift changes. And, if you turn the ball over, you sit for 10 straight minutes like Tevin Carter did a couple games ago. That was annoying. So I'll probably be off of the South Carolina team as a whole here on a 12-game slate. Gavin, anyone for you on the Tennessee side? It just seems like they're always priced at just about
they're way
where
too
they should
highly
be.
priced for the lack of efficient offense that they do not possess. The only note I have is Devin Carter, GPP Mixon. Literally, that's it. All I have from this game.
Oh boy, Devin Carter.
He's a GPP Mixon. He's not a core guy. He's not mainline. He's just, be over the field 3X and, you're 25, 28%.
Don't tell Turtle that he's not a mainline team. He played him 2 games ago and he played 13 minutes.
Well, that guy makes more money than any of us in DFS. So I'm never going to tell him he's wrong.
I didn't realize Tennessee has 3 guys in the top 100 in steal rate, and South Carolina's bottom 10 in offensive steal rate. Is there some Tennessee guard who could just grab 5-6 steals tomorrow?
Well, you got to pay through the nose for Viscovi.
Yeah, they're just
don't have
super
kind of
expensive is the issue.
Alpha dominant, usage rates that you would like to see at those price points, especially with the game total. But they even got Zakai Ziegler priced through the roof.
So John, the reason I was asking about Bo Hodges is Zakai Ziegler is the same price as Bo Hodges tomorrow. So
okay,
yeah. But I think that's all we got here. I have a little interest in Chandler. I just think that he's played pretty well recently, but I don't like these on the road. He's really fallen on his face a couple times on the road in league play. Not sure if that's a freshman deal or not a deal at all, but I'm not going to pay $8K to find out. Going to the next game. This will be a really good real life game, but it should be quick on the DFS side. Iowa State at Texas. I'm seeing a 120 total. Ken Palm's got it Texas 62-56, 206 and 348 tempo. Rock fight incoming. Texas coming off the big game on Wednesday night. My note here is, and I'll go to you first, John. Should Texas be giving 8 to anyone right now?
Well, that's the problem.
120 total.
And Iowa State has been really good as a dog this year. In terms of cover margin as an underdog, 8-3 against the spread, and they are 12th in cover margin, covering by an average of 9.3 per game. So they've been very feisty, sticking around. A couple of those, they blew out Memphis as a big underdog, so that's definitely skewed it a little bit. But at the same time, this is a team that's built to play as an underdog. They force a ton of turnovers. They don't let you get comfortable in your offense. I don't know where Texas is mentally. I think the Tech game kind of unfolded as a lot of people thought it would, that you have one team that was just better, and Texas does not have an identity still, even as we're in February now.
I know.
So it does feel like a lot of points. But at the same time, this is a brutal defensive scheme for Iowa State's offense. Do they crack 50? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I am in the same boat. It's something that I want to bet, but I'm not really going out of my way to bet Iowa State right now, especially with how they've looked recently. I wish Beard would let Texas run a bit more. He has the pieces that want to do it and have succeeded kind of playing at a faster pace than this in their careers. I just wish he would let him open it up a bit. Gavin, what do you think overall in the game? There's no DFS plays here. Maybe a Caleb Grill or something because he's so cheap, but probably won't get there on a big slate.
So we plugged
you just said
one.
Devin Carter, give me a break.
Yeah, we plugged one hole in the boat with actually, God forbid, we played Marcus Carr, more than 30 minutes. So Chris Beard figured that out. But Brock Cunningham is still playing more than Dylan Dessou. Explain yourself, Chris Beard. I for the love of me, I typically can't bet Texas, but coming off of the Texas Tech game, I think that if this line, I think it opened at like 7.5, which there's no way I'm betting that full game. But if the line creeps a little bit towards Iowa State, I could be interested in a first half line where Texas beats them by a possession and comes out fully motivated, where if Brockington is not hitting difficult contested mid-range shots, this offense can go completely dry for extended periods of time.
The first game completely flipped when Kalsher got hot early, and everything changed with that game. I think he hit like 3 or 4 in the first 10 minutes.
That's rare for him this year.
Yeah, right. I'm good fading Gabe Kalsher. Trust me. That's positive ROI. Long term.
He completely flipped the script of that game. It sped up. I think the total closed like 122, and then it flew over just because.
That was the game that was like 75-70 or something like that.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I share Gavin's frustrations. You get Dessou coming in. Not sure like if he's not healthy or what is going on, but
dude, Brock Cunningham is Mitch Lightfoot of Texas. I don't want to see him playing over 20 minutes. Knock this shit off, dude. Mitch Lightfoot plays 3 minutes on a typical KU team that is a national title contender. Same thing with Texas. You're not playing Brock Cunningham 20 plus minutes and thinking that you're going to contend for a title. Sorry, not going to happen.
I agree. I was watching a bit of that Iowa State game the other night, the Kansas game, and Brockington just kept them in the game with just tough shot after tough shot.
No, he shot him out of the game in this last one against KU, where I had 3.5. I luck boxed into the Agbaji injury, and Brockington went like 6 of 28 from the field. I mean, like just.
No, he was 11 of 28.
Everybody's mental health.
I do. Yeah, this is such a horrible matchup for Iowa State's offense, but they can force a ton of turnovers, and the Texas guards can be shaky at times. But yeah, this game is a shit show.
All right, we'll move on to another shit show. Texas Tech at West Virginia. Taz Sherman in concussion protocol. That is dicey for West Virginia.
Boy.
My question for you, John, was going to be, if Taz misses here, what do you think happens in this game, and who do you think takes his minutes? Is it going to be Curry, Johnson, a mix? Do they go big? What do you think?
I like predicting things, but predicting Bob Huggins is not one of them.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, he's such a cantankerous, cranky old man. Who the hell knows what he's thinking? But I'd love to be on West Virginia here, +5 or better. But Taz is one of those players. I don't know. Maybe there's 15, 20 players in the country where I say, like, I can't do anything until I know with him.
I know.
He's that important.
Yeah, so after the Texas Tech game, I was talking with Gavin. We're like, all right, we have to fade them coming up. Is it going to be at West Virginia, or is it at Oklahoma on Wednesday? And I think that's going to have to be the spot. But yeah, you just can't do much on the betting front without that news, like you said. Gavin, what do you think overall? And is there anyone on – you start with Texas Tech for DFS.
Not quite.
Sounds like you're into it.
Yeah, no, not really, frankly. I texted you, I think, at about 9:30 this morning, and I said, can I grow the balls to bet West Virginia first half? And then Taz was in concussion protocol, and I said, to hell with that idea. So we saw Taz cook, from the outside, at least in the game against Baylor. And with Texas Tech having that no middle, if Sean McNeil and Taz aren't clicking, I think West Virginia is walking, dead on arrival, whatever you want to call it. Sean McNeil is going to have to show up, at least in some facet, regardless of especially if Taz doesn't play. But that's the thing is West Virginia is pretty content taking mid-range shots, and they've shown a propensity to not be able to convert them on an efficient basis this year. So it's kind of scary, but letdown of all letdowns off the home hype spot with Texas Tech has me lean into a greasy West Virginia first half if Taz is ruled healthy.
The first game was really – the officiating was it turned into a complete ref show, right?
Horrid.
50 fouls, 58 free throws. But
that's
also been known to happen in Morgantown, so who knows how that goes.
Yeah, so I think Terry Shannon will play here. We saw him get some run at the end of that game the other night. I'm not sure how much he will play, but him playing kind of mucks up a couple of the other Texas Tech pieces, just kind of extends that rotation with a pretty low team total here. I guess you could play Arms, who's been pretty good. He's still cheap. I would like him better if Shannon sits here, I think. But Gavin, the West Virginia side, we talked about the Florida State value. This is going to be a big decision point tomorrow. Are you playing the Florida State rotational value, or are you playing a McNeil, Malik Curry, Kedrian Johnson value? I think that's a big spot. I don't really know myself. Like John said, it's tough to predict. That's why I tried to make him do it.
I'll tell you what, if Taz is out, I'm going to lift my skirt up and I'm going to walk across the water with Sean McNeil in my lineup at 5K. Like, so be it. It is what it is. You can't not
He could take
play
like 18
McNeil.
shots if Taz is out,
That's the thing. I don't see West Virginia having, forget about success, even attempts on the inside where it's going to be just difficult to generate spots the way that Texas Tech defends that no middle. They cut off baseline. They double towards the middle. It's ugly. And I said the same thing about when they played Baylor, right? If Taz isn't hitting shots, Baylor's cooking. You're like, why are you playing Taz? And he's shit on
I played Taz too.
But
I played Taz.
So you got to go to McNeil if Taz is out. I'm probably more interested in Kedrian Johnson than Malik Curry if Taz is out.
I think Kedrian plays like
upside, but I think
30
both
minutes.
Are 2 to 3 condom plays at minimum.
Yeah, I think Kedrian's a pretty good play if you need the value. I just think he's going to play a ton, and he'll just kind of fall into a good score at his price. John, he's basically min price, so he doesn't have to do that much. And agree with you on McNeil. I just think he's going to have to shoot the ball a ton if Taz is out here. Definitely not playing more than one West Virginia piece because I think that they could just not score in this game.
Well, and all the West Virginia bigs, the 4s and the 5s might as well not exist, especially in this game. I mean, Texas,
so like Gabe O projects well because of his price, but there is not a chance in hell I would play Gabe O against Texas Tech. All right,
Isaiah Cottrell, first team Big 12 next year, second year off his Achilles injury. Just want to put that out there.
All right. Well, we've talked about a couple teams with crazy rotations. Here's another one that I hate: Louisville against a team that has no rotation at Syracuse. Ken Palm's got it 77-70, so we're gonna have to pay attention to this one in DFS. Both teams right around 150th in tempo. Malik Williams still out. Disciplinary. They haven't really said what has happened yet, but it doesn't sound good. What do you got on this game, Gavin? I don't think I just can't bet on a Louisville game right now with what's going on there personally.
Yeah, 146 total. Syracuse minus 6.5. I mean, Cusoff 2 straight wins, but they got look ahead concern. But You look at some of their home road splits. I mean, this is one of the biggest home road split shooting teams in the country in terms of the success that they've had shooting at home versus the lack of success on the road. Louisville, if not for a win versus BC at home, they would have lost 8 straight. So they've lost 7 of their last 8. Chris Mack is gone. Malik Williams has pretty much been indefinitely suspended for. Look, I was part of a pretty toxic locker room in Oklahoma State, and I understand how that works. Like, I don't want anything to do with Louisville. Like, guys are going to be checking out really early. This is a bad spot, and we've seen Q's extend it. This is a dirty, greasy lay it spot, but I kind of tend to lay with Syracuse right here after Louisville has the 2 kind of blow their load but come up short efforts against UNC and Duke last 2.
What do you think, John?
I agree. Spot-wise, it's hard with an interim coach to know what exactly the vibe is right now. But just if we put all that aside, and I also have been very hesitant to get involved with Louisville games. The only one I've bet in the last 2 months is when they went to Pitt and didn't show up in that game, and that's been it. But this is a horrible zone offense. On synergy, they're in the 8th percentile against zones, and they've seen a decent amount of it, so it's not a small sample problem. And it makes sense. This is not a roster constructed to beat the zone, especially if Malik Williams is out as like the fulcrum in the middle, guy who could pass and great offensive rebounder. So I want zero to do with any of this.
Yeah, same. It just kind of seems like 2 teams going in 2 different directions. Syracuse still not good, but had a couple good wins lately. Louisville kind of packing up shop. But that has made all of their prices drop in DFS, Gavin. The guy that when I played him a couple weeks ago, you were shitting on me. L. Ellis has had a couple good games in a row. He's still dirt cheap. Are you interested in chalk L. Ellis, Gavin? Because he's going to be very owned.
I actually switched off no-owned Ellis onto chalk Dre Davis a couple slates ago.
When he played like 12 minutes.
Literally just had, my human parts ripped from me. So I tend to think that L. Ellis potentially has chance to get, unleashed. I mean, I don't know why he didn't start. Like, he had so much of the usage after Dre Davis came out, and he was kind of the go-to guy late, both from the three-point line and, inside the arc. But, oh, my God, dude. Like, Louisville
at least we
is
know
like
he's going to chuck in this
FSU
game, right?
It's throwing darts. I have no idea who's going to be north of 20 points. Some guys can be highly efficient. Some guys can be no efficiency. So it's just tough to go. But first place I look here was sub AK Jesse Edwards. I mean, my God, especially with no Malik Williams. If, Fat Sydney is playing down low and Jesse's going to have the foot speed to stay in front of him with the walk up side, I tend to like Jesse in this matchup.
Yeah, the Louisville pieces are just tough to get to. They're going to project well, but the minutes are just very, very fragile. I think I was watching. I think it was the Notre Dame game, and he's benching guys for like 1 turnover or a couple missed shots in a row, and they're just sitting for 8 to 10 at a time. I mean, it's exactly what happened to Dre Davis last game when everyone was on him because he had 2 good games in a row. And then he started the game cold and played 12 minutes, So I think these guys will be popular, but that's why I brought up, the comparisons, right? Because it's something like L. Ellis versus John Butler versus Kedrian Johnson. You're going to have to make these decisions on the slate, and you're not going to feel comfortable with any of them. But, to play your Walker Kesslers and your Kofis and your Laravias and your TJDs and Jaden Ivies and stuff, you do have to play these guys. So we'll move on to the Syracuse side real quick before we go to the next game. Everyone knows their rotation. Gavin, I'll just ask you, who do you like the best at their price? You had said Jesse.
Yeah, definitely Jesse for me with Joe and Swider just under the 7K mark. They finally priced these guys kind of, relatively efficiently compared to what their minute and their usage floor and their peripheral floor is. So at this rate, when Jesse is the second most expensive with a lot more of the block upside. But look, we've seen where Buddy takes 24 shots and makes 15 of them. Like he can go nuts on any given
especially
slate.
at home.
So you got to mix in Buddy if you're playing satellites, qualifiers, and the like.
This looks to me like a great matchup for him because Louisville's guards are really small, and everything for Syracuse is just ISO, pull up off the dribble. I mean, both Boeheims can just shoot over any of the Louisville guards. Like West is 5'11", Faulkner 6'1", Locke 6'3".
Yeah, I like that. I do like Buddy he would probably be tournament only just because he's so streaky, and the peripherals haven't been great just with Jesse taking up, or I guess it's Jesse and Swider taking up all the rebounds, really. All right, we'll move on here. Rematch of the game that I saw in person a couple weeks ago, DePaul and Xavier. Ken Palm's got it Xavier 78-67. Both teams right around 90th in tempo. JFL still out. DePaul has kind of circled the drain since they lost him. They've lost 9 of their last 10. I think Xavier rolls here. What do you think overall about the game, John, and Xavier in general?
I took a small flyer on Xavier at the start of the season at, 80-1, something like that. And I'm still optimistic when they get out of the Big East grinder. I think they're going to be a tough matchup on a neutral floor for teams who don't know them, but Big East teams know them pretty well. And they do still take segments of games off. So they're a team for me. I have trouble laying big numbers with them. But scheme-wise, this is a pretty good matchup because they give you nothing at the rim at all. And DePaul is not a team that's going to light you up from the outside, especially without JFL creating shots. So if it came down for whatever reason, I would consider Xavier. For now, it's a pass, but I can't get there with DePaul by any means.
Yeah. Gavin, what do you got on this game? I know that you also have some futures on Xavier.
So what do we have? Like 66-1 or something like that to win it all. I mean, part of it was when Fremantle was coming back and Scruggs really hadn't shown that kind of alpha characteristic that he more had last year. This is kind of before Nungy was really starting to go off, like from 3. And I think there's going to be a little bit of learning curve in terms of Travis Steele trying to how to incorporate, 2 of those bigs on a going basis. But part of me feels like this could be a spot where Xavier just kicks the shit out of DePaul.
That's what I think.
But at the same time, like, I'd probably just fall on the side of I would probably rather lay it with Xavier rather than play DePaul getting the points without JFL. I mean, DePaul without Javon Freeman-Liberty is like Niagara. And not to disparage Niagara by any stretch.
A very well-played team. Yes.
So the big positive for me backing Xavier long-term is that we've seen Fremantle play 34 minutes, 3 or 4 games in a row off the foot injury. They kind of slowly kept it, brought him back. He was playing mid-20s. And to see him playing full minutes and being aggressive, 22% shot share last 3 is a great sign long-term for this team. But the issue DFS-wise, Gavin, as we've had the entire year, is they've got 5 basically really good players that kind of have interchangeable usage game to game, and they're all priced like they're going to have their ceiling game. So do you like anyone DFS-wise on Xavier? Their team total is almost 80 here.
That's one of the higher ones on the slate. I like Colby Jones's floor, especially if you're playing cash. I like Colby Jones just in terms of what he can put up from a peripheral standpoint, and he's going to give you, 8+ shots a game. It might not be the biggest ceiling play because I don't know if he's got kind of 35, 40+ point fantasy upside, but I think he gives you a much better consistency than someone like a Jack Nungy who, like, Nungy was doing nothing against Creighton until he started hitting threes in the second half, like after they were chasing 16 at the break. So Nungy has kind of these lulls as well, but that's why I kind of had the bet on Xavier. I just think they got a lot of different pieces in how they can attack a team versus if it's Scruggs being an alpha, if it's Nungy off a pick and pop, if it's Fremantle in the post, if it's Kunkel and Nate Johnson, God forbid, hitting shots at home. We've seen the way that these guys can shoot.
Don't you talk about
home.
Nate Johnson as a Virginia Tech
Nate
guy
Johnson,
this year.
This guy.
Let me pull up that box score.
Yeah,
30 points against Virginia Tech. What a dick.
It's going to be tough to get to some of these Xavier guys just with how spread out a lot of the usage and peripheral stuff is with the team.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, for this slate, DePaul is the DFS side because of the JFL injury, because of the pricing.
Because it frees up 28% usage, like literally 1 out of every 4 possessions on the entire team.
Yeah, and they haven't really changed the pricing. You know, we've seen our old friend from Iowa State, Javon Johnson, start to play a ton. He's played 31 and 39 minutes in the last 2 games. And I don't think that last game was an overtime game, but someone can correct me if it was. And you know, starting to take over more and more usage as he's getting healthy. He's at 3.7, Gavin. I think it's going to be really tough to get away from him, even in what we think is a bad spot for DePaul. And then, you know, you have the 2 forwards, Anai and is it Ongenda or Onyenda?
Ongenda is what right?
Yeah. Who it just kind of seems like he picks one to start every other game or however he's thinking. I think Anai is
They're
a
both
better
defensive stalwarts. Whoever doesn't end up in foul trouble plays the majority of the minutes.
So they are both cheap and both in play. And then Brandon Johnson from Minnesota is playing a ton of minutes, 32 plus in 3 straight, good rebounding rate. He's going to project well also. So I think that you can play. It sounds weird to say. I think you can play 2 DePaul pieces just because of the pricing here. What do you think about that, Gavin? Just with the pricing that I
Johnson,
laid out.
You know who this? You know what identical play this feels like 3 weeks ago?
Who?
Max Prosper.
No.
You think he's got
Javon
a little bit
Jackson
better
is not a
minute floor?
corner stander.
God, it's going to be hard not to play Javon Johnson. It gives me kind of similar vibes of Max Prosper, but yeah, he probably has a little bit better minute floor. You're right, but against a really lengthy Xavier team, that he's not going to have a lot of ease shooting at the rim, much less the 3-point line on the road. So in large field stuff, if you want to fade him, I can get behind it, but it's going to be tough in a main line perspective. Yeah,
John. So since we've last talked, we got suckered in by Prosper on Marquette having a couple good games and continued to start. And I can't remember which game it was. It was a Saturday game. He started the first 10 minutes like 0 of 6. Greg Elliott comes in, hits a couple threes, and Prosper doesn't play the rest of the game.
Sure. Prosper, Iguodaro, Elliott, Stevie Mitchell, and everybody plays in front of Prosper. It's like you think you get a good spot with minute floors with 2 straight games, and then the third game, the guy shits the bed in the first 10 minutes, and he doesn't play the rest of the game. So
you guys are not incentivizing me, by the way, to get back into the DFS game.
No, but you need to, dude, because you understand game theory. There's no reason you should not be playing DFS.
Talk to the asshole legislators here in my state.
Regardless of
that.
Regardless of all the complaining that we do, and we talk about our bad beats, but we have both had good seasons so far. So
one other,
I think,
the Paul Xavier game, Steve, I know you were there. This was just kind of a bizarre game in general because Xavier was asleep in the first half, like completely asleep at the switch.
David Jones had like 22 points in the first half.
Right. And he was hitting some tough shots too.
Yeah.
But DePaul made 15 twos and 11 threes. So that does not seem repeatable from behind the arc, especially on the road. So I'm warming to the idea of the Xavier blowout.
Yeah. I mean, that was my first note here is, does DePaul keep this within 18,
I almost hope that DePaul battles them early, and then we get like a really fresh live line,
a juicy live spot,
first half, something like that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's enough of DePaul. Let's go to the last game on the slate here. Really, really good one, I think. Michigan at Purdue. Ken Palm's got it Purdue 81-70. I know the line has taken a lot of Michigan money early. I missed that. We'll let you go first here, Gavin. Purdue had that awesome win. I think it was Sunday. I was in Key West, so I don't remember Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah, the J93.
Yeah, that was awesome. We got some just a classic Raftery double order call. That was great. Everyone loves that. So 270th and 227 tempos. Tempo doesn't really matter for Purdue. They just score anyways. Go ahead, Gavin.
Yeah, second best total on the slate, 147.5. Purdue laying 11. I think spreads up 1.5 points. And man, I'm still not really sure exactly what I have with Michigan. Like, off 2 poor showings with the road smacking at Sparty and the close edge out versus Nebraska, both were non-covers. They've had 3 straight non-covers after they kind of put together the 2 good showings against Maryland and I can't think of who the second game was before the Nebraska game, but
they smoked Indiana in Bloomington. Was it that?
Was it the Indiana game?
Yeah, we were on that too, Gavin. That felt good to get some Michigan money back.
Yeah.
But number in this spot tells me Michigan, but I don't know, man. Gut kind of tells me Purdue could absolutely hammer them in this spot if Michigan is not converting from 3.
Right.
I don't really know how they kind of keep up. Like, yeah, okay, Purdue. We talk about Purdue. The most thing they're susceptible to is perimeter guard play.
Mm-hmm.
Is Devontae Jones and Eli Brooks really that threatening of offensive forces on that front? I know they're definitely stout on the defensive end, and maybe they can grind them down. I do not trust them in pick and roll, ball screen, handoff game, trying to force switches. Like, I don't know. We got Purdue 14-8 to the over on the season, Michigan 11-8 to the over on the season with a 5-2 over under on the road. Both teams outside the top 330 in defensive turnover possessions, so we should get a lot of full possessions. The Michigan fade spot is, can they keep this competitive? But I think the Michigan fade spot is hopefully they keep this competitive. Then they play at Penn State next game before the Purdue home rematch. I think the Penn State game next is the fade spot for Michigan.
That's a good spot. John, just real quick. Not sure if it's real, but I just feel like Purdue comes out of the gates as good as anyone outside of Gonzaga. I feel like they just routinely put up 40+ in the first half, more than anyone else in the country. Gavin and I have actually been betting some Purdue first half team totals this year, which has been fun. Not always comfortable betting like an over 38 first half team total, but they do seem to start out hot. What do you think about this game? This is going to be a good one here.
It is. And I think Gavin said it, the whole cap here. And if you can figure this out, then you probably get the right side. Is Michigan going to make shots from the outside? Because they're not going to be able to just throw the ball into Dickinson and say, go get buckets against Travion and Edey. That's clearly not going to happen. And it's not like he's good enough on the perimeter to drag them out of their comfort zone. I played the Purdue Minnesota over earlier this week, basically with the idea that, okay, Purdue's going to score at will. We know that. But Minnesota has a bunch of shot makers, and they could force switches, and that's what they did. They kept getting like battle matched up against Williams or against Edey on the perimeter. I don't know if Michigan has the shot makers to do that. Brooks,
they don't have a Peyton Willis that can literally break anybody down in a one-on-one in a pick and roll situation, who can hit from 3, who can drive and dish. Like, that is not Eli Brooks and Devontae Jones, as much as we've wanted Devontae Jones to be that.
Right. That's exactly what I was going to say. I think we all keep waiting, and less so these days, but like, okay, is Michigan going to figure it out? Are they going to flip a switch? I kind of at this point think they are what they are. So
same.
It's just a solid team. Maybe KenPom has a 42. That seems a little high to me. I think they're more like 50, 55. But yeah, this is a game that to me has a ton of jump shooting variance, and I'm not trying to flip that coin.
So the thing that stood out to me when I was doing the last Michigan game is they have been, like, if you remember them last year, they were top 5 in like opponents' 2-point percentage in the season. They are 13th out of 14 in the Big Ten so far this year.
Isaiah Livers, dude,
Yeah.
could not be understated enough asset to that team last year. And switchability, 1 through 4 defense, hitting shots from deep. They do not. Caleb Houston is not that. Moussa Diabate is not that, for as relatively impressive as they've been as freshmen in stretches.
And Wagner, too, as a defender. Also,
that guy was drafted 8th or 10th overall. Yeah, that random German.
Well, I was just going to say, in the context of this slate, you've got a Purdue team that is pretty damn efficient inside the arc. 3 guys who can score pretty much at will inside. I think that people just that is not widely known yet, that Michigan has been a lot softer inside. I'm sure that you knew that, John, but just in general, just thinking of the Michigan teams from the last few years, you're like, they're kind of tough inside. I think it's a place to attack, and I think kind of moving into the DFS, Gavin, I think that's something that we can take advantage of here in what's the second highest total on the slate. Playing, but what is scary is, you're playing Travion, who could play 16 minutes. So what do you think DFS wise, starting with Purdue, since I was just talking about him? We just saw Ivy play 35 minutes. That was awesome.
Yeah, and it feels like, he's obviously going to be
38
the
minutes
play of the team. Usage, peripheral quality, usage in transition just gives him more, access to better upside. But I want to play Trevion so bad in this matchup. I actually think that Trevion can pose a little bit tougher matchup to Dickinson than just Edey back you down under the and maybe I'm wrong in that, but I think that space unit that Painter plays with Trevion kind of at the high post and 4 guys on the outside, I think probably is the way to go about it. Like, Gillis is finally priced up to $5K, no upside there.
No.
I'm not playing Eric Hunter. You got to be fucking
Eric Hunter won
game,
a qualifier last game.
Disgusting. Then I'm just not going to win a qualifier if Eric Hunter just playing for free. That's just how it's going to go. So be it. But yeah, Purdue is one of those, is I think really similar to Xavier in the fact that it's a relatively flat usage distribution
between the top 3. Yeah,
you got two of the best bigs in the country, but both are viable to play less than 20 minutes, which regardless of efficiency can just crush ceiling and floor. I don't really know where I'm going to go with Purdue, to be honest with you.
Travion's down to 7.5, Kevin.
It's hard not to, but Edey
is the same price as Stefanovic.
Showed way just better usage, floor. Purdue's hard, man. I really don't know, in all honesty, full disclosure, I don't know what I'm going to do with Purdue tomorrow. But in essence, they're one of the biggest enigmas of any DFS slate, given that flat usage.
Yep, and I think that you're probably going to have to play one of their studs. 80-plus points in 7 of their last 8 games, coming in here with a 78, 79 team total.
I think you're right. Yep.
That kind of wraps up our slate. I assume that you're not on any Michigan pieces here. Maybe Brooks, because he's cheap and he's going to have to shoot. But I wanted to wrap up. I know that we went a little long here, but I do want to ask you guys, since tomorrow is such an awesome slate of games after these games, if you guys had anything that you liked off the slate. But before that, I just had a couple of snap thoughts, right, for the late games. So we'll do each of you just a quick thought. I've got 4 games written down here. So we'll start with you, Gavin. Duke -2.5 at North Carolina.
Some folks have said that Dawson Garcia is not that great at basketball, but when Brady Manick is guarding Paolo Banchero, I promise you that the UNC fans are going to be sorely missing Dawson Garcia. If Banchero's player prop for points is south of 20, I'm going to be betting it tomorrow. Don't know if I'll be getting in on the spread side of it, but I don't know how he doesn't just absolutely smash with Baycott and Mark Williams locked up on the interior. Hopefully Wendell Moore and AJ Griffin can at least make RJ Davis and Caleb Love's life relatively difficult on the perimeter. So I think that's where Boncaro makes it happen.
John, what do you think about this game, real quick?
That's a really tough matchup for UNC just because of how much has been flowing through Baycott lately, and Duke is a top 10 post defense with Williams and Theo John and Boncaro when teams try and post him up. So
Williams has been really good.
Yeah, I think this could be a lot of Caleb Love and not enough Baycott.
And Love fried Duke twice last year.
Yeah,
he did. Yeah. All right.
But
go ahead.
Lean Duke, but I don't think I want to lay a full 3, just where I thought it was last time.
I bet Duke minus 2.5 when I saw it open. I don't know. I'm going off what Gavin said. Having Manic guard Paulo for 35 minutes is not going to end well. Next one, a team that I have bet a lot this year, Kansas State getting 5 at TCU. John, what do you think about K-State here?
I have to go back and look, but I think I'd bet the under in at least 3 straight, if not 4 straight meetings between these two, just because of how they match up. And that would be my only look. I believe I'd go back and check the notes, but I think both offenses had a ton of trouble scoring against the respective defenses.
Mm-hmm.
And TCU was, I think, surprised a lot of us in how solid they were. But, laying almost 2 full possessions in conference is not something that would interest me. So probably under or nothing again.
Yep. Gavin, anything there? I've bet K-State a couple times at home, but have not. I've yet to take them on the road.
Yeah, two guard-centric, penetration, relatively reliant squads that shoot gaps pretty well on the defensive end is. I think I tend to agree with John. I'm as big of a Mike Miles guy as anybody. I think whatever was in that Team USA water was potentially performance enhancing, if not religiously blessing. So whatever, all those guys that played on that team, Mike Miles included, they're rolling well. Yeah, hard to lay that many points with a Kansas State team that's more defensively minded.
Yeah. All right, I'll go right back to you, Gavin, so you can talk about your boy Iverson Molinar.
Spank me. Is that the SEC Player of the Year not named Oscar Tshiebwe?
That was your call on our pregame show, wasn't it?
I mean,
Molinar.
Okay, well, maybe I might get over my skis, but you guys been playing well.
So they're catching 5 at Arkansas. Arkansas has been rolling, but we do like this Miss State team probably more than others. Go ahead.
The thing about I still think this Arkansas team, like they're solid, and they definitely looked worse than I think what they're going to end up as from about, what was it, mid-December to mid-January, and then they kind of started to catch fire in SEC play. Jalen Williams playing out of his mind, dude. I mean, defensively,
awesome.
Offensively being a force. Like JD Notae carries the scoring floor for that team. I think they're still going to need, and Stanley Amude, okay, as a third option, I think he's the most crucial portion of that team. If he's a legitimate third option scoring wise that they can go to get points, I think this Arkansas team is in much better shape than if it's reliant on JD taking long threes and Jalen Williams getting put back 2s and scores inside. So I've been trying to fade this Arkansas team, and I've caught my hand on the stove a couple times, so I can't say I'm willing to go back to it, but I still lean the other way.
Yeah. What do you think, John, real quick?
Mississippi State, worst road team in the country, per the Haslam metric.
Really?
358, yeah.
Thank you. Then I don't have to bet them.
Thank you. This is why we had the segment.
They had that one great showing at Kentucky going to overtime. A game they probably should have won. But
yeah.
But other than that, Arkansas is on my list. I'm hoping it goes down a little bit more. I know Tolu Smith is still questionable.
Yeah.
Mississippi State loses something that's high without him. So, in Arkansas, really good on the defensive glass, which takes away a big weapon for Mississippi State. I don't know. I think Arkansas turns them into a jump shooting team. First game, Notae didn't play. This rematch looks very different to me than the first meeting.
Yeah, maybe the Mississippi State spot is Wednesday at home against Tennessee, where they're projected to be a home dog. Yeah. And then the last one, real quick, one of the bigger games of, I think it's a night game as well, Kentucky at Bama. Kentucky laying 2 on the road.
Oh no.
Same shit as last Saturday where I know I bet Bama against Baylor. It did not feel good, but I was glad to see them win. Gavin and I are, I wouldn't say fans of the team, but we just like Oates, and the style. And so, John, I'll let you talk first quickly on this game overall.
I mean, I'll certainly watch it. It's a great game. I don't think I'm going to be involved in any way. Bama's pretty much showed up in every one of these big spots, right? I mean, they will clearly play up to better competition, but I don't know. It's
Bama's such a great. You had I can't remember. I think it was St. John's. Bama is awesome live betting team. Because at some point they're going to hit 4 or 5 or 6 threes and get right back into the game. We saw in the Auburn game twice. Gavin
Shackelford in any given stretch can 3 or 3, 4 or 5. We saw it at Gonzaga. We saw it last game. I got my hand caught in the cookie jar. That was my Barney at the bar bet last week. Was I took Baylor just because I really hadn't seen enough from Bama the last couple games in terms of the defensive and rebounding prowess, and sure enough, they took a nice Cleveland steamer right on me. But so I'll be passing on this one. I'll definitely watch and enjoy and live bet at some point. But yeah, Bama's as good of a live betting team as there is in the country. You just play it live.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, as we get out of here, I want to thank both of you, and I'll start with you, John. Any other bets that you like for tomorrow's slate, and then where can people find you on Twitter and your bets?
I've got some work to do on tomorrow's slate. We mentioned Florida State before, -1.5. Only other game I played so far, Florida Ole Miss under 132. Ole Miss now without Deshaun Ruffin. They'd already lost Jarkel Joyner. I don't know where their shot creation's coming from at this point. And the idea of Florida without Castleton against any sort of zone, first game is ugly. I think this one's going to be as ugly.
You mean without Jason Jatobo?
Yeah, yes, also him, a dominant offensive force. But other than that, I haven't played anything. I have a bunch that are on the lean list that aren't quite there yet. So I don't want to be boring, but numbers have to get there for me to get involved. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter at John Fendler and on BetStamp JAF373.
Awesome. Gavin, I know you've fired at some things. I think we talked about all of them here. I'm not sure if you had anything off of the DK slate.
Rutgers +3. The only time to bet Rutgers is at the rack, and I've been fading this Sparty team a lot. I bet Maryland last game, and to be honest, I might have gotten a little lucky there, but I still think this Michigan State team just has a horseshoe rammed up their ass the last whatever month or so. I think it's probably one of the easiest fade teams going forward in terms of the big Power 5 guys. So
yeah,
Rutgers at the rack. Bet one of the best spots to bet in the Big Ten. Took +3. Bet KU -2 with Agbaji clearing protocols, Cryer and Flagler on the Fritz. We don't know where they're at. And look, frankly, if both those guys don't play, I really worry about the perimeter shot efficiency of these guys. I mean, if Akinjo isn't taking it from a one-man show and breaking guys down off the dribble, I think Baylor's going to have a hard time scoring. Even if it's one of these David McCormack take a big shit on the slate and not be the 15 and 12 guy that he should be on a night-to-night basis. But last one I took was Miami, Virginia over 129.5.
Oh, God.
That's disgusting.
Oh, boy.
That's disgusting.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Well, at least you won't watch that one. Real quick, someone in the chat asked top 3 plays on DK. I haven't built anything yet, but I think the biggest thing that stood out to me was Florida State. I think Caleb Mills probably God, it feels so weird saying that.
I look at like Caleb, Javon Johnson,
Kofi,
probably.
Yeah. So, all right. We're right about at 90 minutes, which is what we usually do, which is too long, but we have fun. So want to thank Gavin, want to thank John. Everyone, enjoy the games tomorrow. We will see you next time.